This is not a standalone video. It was compiled as a companion to a text article of the same name. Links to the websites that host the article can be found in the video notes. Trying to examine the no planes in New York theory is very complicated, because you must put yourself in a position of, theoretically, accepting the proposition in order to explain why it is so improbable. Here is the video shot by Jules Naudet. Now, if that video was faked, several questions come to mind. Why were the perpetrators so keen to have a video of the first hit? Wouldn't it have been better that no faked videos existed? No faked videos, no questions. But if a faked video was essential for the record, why choose a documentary crew to shoot the background material for it? The more people involved, the greater the risk of exposure. Why not set up an unattended surveillance camera? But, in the unlikely event of a documentary crew being chosen, why didn't someone advise Jules Naudet to set up his camera in a position where the towers were already in the frame? This would have been a much simpler setup for both the cameraman and the person doing the precision matching of the plane to the background. The logical conclusion is that it is far more likely that Jules Naudet just happened to be in that place at that time. Here I've isolated Joseph Pfeiffer, observing what was happening on the day his brother, Kevin Pfeiffer, died. No matter what anyone tells you, there were reliable eyewitnesses in New York on September the 11th, 2001. And people like the Web Fairy and Simon Shack, who play around with enlarged, frozen images like this, trying to prove that Joseph Pfeiffer was wrong, are doing just that, playing around. To my knowledge, the only shot broadcast live of the South Tower impact was captured by Kai Simonson from the Fox News Hi-5 helicopter, which was approaching from the west when the pilot saw the plane heading for the Twin Towers and warned Simonson, who zoomed in and captured the event. But according to the maker of September Clues and others, this was a graphic overlay of a plane timed to coincide with the tower exploding, but which went wrong. And when someone realized that its nose was coming out of the other side of the building, they faded the helicopter feed to black. However, the line scan disturbances that can be clearly seen on this frozen frame indicate that a transmission glitch was the reason for the momentary loss of picture, a not uncommon occurrence with remote camera transmissions, and about 15 frames later, another distorted frame appears, then full-quality transmission is resumed. The absurdity of what came to be known as the nose-in, nose-out proof of video fakery is revealed by watching videos that were shot from the other side of the building. Showing videos of such events in slow motion gives a false impression of what really happened. Repetitions at normal speed are far better. These are repeats of the same event from different angles which reveal how literally one-sided Shack's work is. According to Simon Shack, the broadcasters were constantly covering up mistakes on 9/11, so he characterizes yet another obvious transmission glitch as a sinister blackout. Here's another example of the kind of mind-numbing innuendo Simon Shack employs to try and make his case. Presumably, not expecting anything else to happen, standing close to the tower, what Mr. Hanshoe would have heard was something like this. The point of impact was at least 700 feet above ground level, and the speed of sound is 1130 feet per second, so the sound only reached him when the plane was well inside the building. No surprises there when you apply some simple physics. September Clues 2008 is 92 minutes long, and I haven't the time to see if it covered the Park Foreman shot, but if there were no planes, it must be explained how this shot was achieved. This clip has the full beginning but ends abruptly, so requires the freeze frame.
I was standing on top of a brownstone in Brooklyn Heights. My neighbor was standing right next to me, and we were just watching, and I'm looking through the camera lens, and he says, he goes, "What the is that?" And I panned the camera to the left and picked up that plane.
and I can see nothing in the shot to suggest that it came about in any other way. Look at the glint of sunlight as the plane banks. Here's another clip from which the beginning is missing, but which shows the explosion developing and what must be a smoking engine arcing its way down towards Murray and Church Streets. Here are the parameters for video fakery before the fact. Each camera conspirator must have been briefed with the following essential information: the exact time that the graphic plane would appear to impact the South Tower, 9:03 and 11 seconds. Considering that the explosions would almost certainly be computer-controlled, why such an unmemorable time would be chosen is anyone's guess. Next, the graphic plane's exact point of impact, which was already known because that was where the faked impact hole was to appear. And all 45 or so conspirators would need to know exactly where the invisible plane was coming from, with points as to where it was supposed to be at any given time. In Park Foreman's case, exactly 4.6 seconds before impact. The precision requirement would have been mind-boggling, and everyone had to get it dead right on take one. So who is going to explain why Michael Hertzakani was still messing around with the zoom control and tilting his camera skyward only 4.5 seconds before he is supposed to have known that the graphic plane was about to arrive at 9:03 and 11 seconds? He very nearly missed the actual impact. Here is a short, repeated clip from Ace Baker's attempt to recreate the South Tower crash. He doesn't explain why the added plane is slightly smaller or such a strange colour, and there are no lighting changes similar to those on the original, dare I call it, real plane. Nor do the wings show an increased dihedral due to the G-forces from the final bank. But even had he sorted all of those things out, he would only have proved one thing: that he could imitate the plane's impact using computer graphics. He would not have proved that the original shot was faked. As we've just seen, adding a graphic to a fairly steady shot is not as easy as some people make it sound, and if these shots were faked, a model of the plane and a computerized motion control system may have been required to match the blur of the wildly unsteady live camera work. So why would the perpetrators have made things so difficult for themselves? This shot is in contention for a number of reasons, one of which being that it is alleged that the plane does not decelerate as it enters the building. These are stills from a study by Eric Salter, which look very convincing to me, and show a deceleration of about 18%. Naturally, James Fetzer has cited a source, Rick Rushter, who maintains that mistakes were made by Salter. Eric Salter has admitted that he did misalign the final overlay, but points out that what Rick Rushter doesn't mention is that in the next to final frame, which is not misaligned, the plane has already experienced a deceleration of 8.5%. Although I'm inclined to agree with Eric Salter because his methodology seems very sound, if he did get something wrong, Rushter might have done so as well, because of the poor quality of the images they were both working with, which would mean that deceleration has been neither proved nor disproved. And consider this: if the video had been faked, under the pressure of having to doctor all of the other videos, would someone have paid so much attention to this little detail? It is a reflection of the plane that would never have been missed had it not been there. But the Evan Fairbanks video does not have to stand alone, and along with the indisputable fact of a smoking engine core coming out of the building, the body of evidence leans heavily in the direction that his video is genuine. There can be little doubt that the fiery object in this and other videos is part of a jet engine. It first hit this building, then ended up at the corner of Murray and Church Streets, where it was photographed, inspected, protected.
This is evidence you're kicking stuff. What's the matter with you?
Allowed to gather dust, and eventually, it is said, it ended up in a landfill on Staten Island, along with all its telltale serial numbers. Dumped. Imagine that. What can be compared to the bullet from a smoking gun which had just killed hundreds of people is just dumped. A piece of monumental criminal negligence? or a deliberate attempt to cover up the identity of the aircraft. Whatever the answer to that question may be, there is absolutely nothing in the shots that I have just discussed that suggests video fakery. The only way to prove that these shots were faked would be to find the people who did the work and the material and equipment they did it with. One would need to see the original videos without the plane and the elements that were used to make the composites. How the work was done would also need to be demonstrated.